So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for the basic New York City housing vouchers. My name is Will Greenberg. I'm with Brooklyn Legal Services Corporation A. Tonight we're going to hear from Brooklyn A staff and staff from Catholic Charities. But before we get going, I will have Carlo, one of our language interpreters, explain how to move over into the Spanish language room if you would like to listen to tonight's presentation in Spanish. All right, I'm going to start that room so you can move over if you'd like to watch tonight in Spanish. And I see that Councilmember Rita Joseph is with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Councilmember. We are so happy to have you. So just briefly, if you are new to Brooklyn A tonight, we are a free legal service provider. We have been working in New York City for more than 50 years. We serve clients in all 5 boroughs, and we have home offices based in Williamsburg and Bed-Stuy. We provide innovative, collaborative, neighborhood-based representation and advocacy that advances social and economic justice and opportunity. The core theme of our high-quality, low-barrier legal services is to support individuals, families, and small businesses so they can thrive and stay rooted in their communities despite the pressures of gentrification and displacement. We have 3 core program areas: our Preserving Affordable Housing program, who is hosting tonight's event. They work on eviction prevention, preventing harassment, repair and essential services issues, and tenant organizing. Our Community and Economic Development program deals with commercial lease issues for small businesses, works with nonprofits, negotiates rents and arrears for commercial owners, and does nonprofit incorporation and startup services. Finally, our consumer and economic advocacy program has many different arms. We have a low-income taxpayer clinic, which offers a variety of different tax resources. We have foreclosure prevention work there, work on deed theft cases and predatory lending. And we also have our domestic violence program, which offers services including orders of protection, child custody and support, and more. Before we give it to the council member, we wanted to also introduce Catholic Charities. I'll pass it over to our presenter from Catholic Charities tonight, Nicole Grezek.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending. My name is Nicole Grezek. I'm a supervisor at the Catholic Charities Home-Based program. So I just wanted to give a little overview about what Catholic Charities does as a whole. We cover Brooklyn and Queens and have programs throughout both boroughs. So we cover emergency food assistance, affordable housing. We have a whole wing of children and family services and services for older adults. So there's all different programs that span Brooklyn and Queens. And today I'm going to be focusing on the home-based program. Home-based is covered across all 5 boroughs. They're just run by different organizations. So mine, the Catholic Charities, covers parts of Brooklyn, including East New York, Canarsie, and all of Queens. So that's our contact information, but we will get more into it if you live outside of those areas.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to say thank you to our sponsors for tonight, Councilmember Rita Joseph and Councilmember Farrah Lewis. I see that we have Councilmember Rita Joseph here with us. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'd love to give you the floor.
Oh, so thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm Councilmember Rita Joseph. I'm truly honored to be part of this vital tenet housing virtual event. It's an honor for me. The basic of New York City housing voucher is a fundamental human rights, which I believe, and a commitment to making sure that we have equitable access to affordable housing in our city is unwavering. So tonight we're coming together to provide critical information surrounding housing vouchers. It's a topic that I know that impacts the lives of countless New Yorkers, and it's my privilege to stand alongside you in seeking solution and also making sure that we are empowering our constituents and our tenants across the city. So throughout this event, we're going to cover a gamut of essential topics, from resources available to those who qualify, assistance, application process. Thank you for that. That is so informative, and especially recent in city laws affecting your housing option. Knowledge is power. As an educator, I always believe that knowledge is power. So thank you so much for making the space for people to understand intricacies in securing stable and affordable housing. Thank you for supporting our DV survivors and thrivers, and that's very important in that space. Thank you, Catholic Charities, for your dedicated work around home-based program and being an expert in your fields and supporting our New Yorkers that look for housing. Thank you for your guidance, providing valuable information and resources tonight. And as we know, this is a community that we want to make sure everyone is accessible. Thank you for providing language access. Very important for us to make sure that our constituents that are listening understand both English and Spanish. And it's also a reflection of our communities, how inclusive we want to be in accessibility. So this is very important. So I want everyone who's listening tonight to be actively engaged, ask questions, the information, and follow up too, to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. Make sure that an opportunity to also empower ourselves, families, neighbors. If you know anyone, share the information with them. If you're on here, go get a neighbor and say, hey, I'm getting some valuable information tonight. Please come and share. And I don't want to take up too much time. I know you're about to start, but thank you so much for having this info session tonight. It's very important, and the ongoing resources that you provide to our constituents. To myself and Councilmember Lewis, this was an honor for us to be part in your space. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I won't stop saying that because it's the work that you guys do are invaluable to our constituents. So I just want to thank you for that. And have a great night. Have a great event. I'll be traveling back to Brooklyn, but I'll be following along to see how it goes. And we're here as a support and resource to continue doing this work together. Thank you for your partnership.
And thank you so much for your partnership, Councilmember. The honor is all ours. We really appreciate all the work you do in all of these areas as well. Can't do it without you. I think these kinds of partnerships are really important. And yes, as she said, please do or don't hesitate to ask questions. I only ask that you hold to the end. We will do a Q&A at the very end. And just a reminder, if you have a very specific personal issue that you're dealing with a housing voucher or your housing situation, you can follow up with us after. You don't have to ask it in a public forum. We'll give the contact info for both Brooklyn A and Catholic Charities. We'll make sure that everybody knows how to follow up with us. But of course, general questions are very welcome. Want to just introduce and reintroduce our presenters for tonight. From Brooklyn A, we have Ruki Asfi, who is a social worker for us and does an incredible job working with people specifically on vouchers. And from Catholic Charities, we have Nicole Grezek, who you already met. So thank you both tonight for being here and putting together this really informative and helpful program. As a reminder too, so we are recording tonight. We will be posting this onto our YouTube channel afterwards, and we will plan to make the slides available as well. So this information, it's not just tonight, but beyond that too, always feel free. You can follow up with us, even if it's just for information question, or we can help you potentially with services as well. So with that, I will turn it over to our presenters. I think Ruki, you'll start.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruki. I'm one of the social workers here at Brooklyn A, and I am specifically on the Preserving Affordable Housing program. And as Will has said, yes, I have assisted a bunch of our clients with obtaining housing vouchers. So this goes right into the question, what exactly is a housing voucher? These are known as housing subsidies or rental subsidies. They're government-funded programs, and they're meant to help families that have low income afford housing. Housing should be a basic human right, and we have programs in place that are going to help support that. People that typically receive these vouchers have to meet certain requirements around income and work, and once it's been issued, tenants usually pay a small percentage, upwards of 40%, that is the maximum, of their income on rent. This is why the income requirements are asked, so they can base how much you pay on rent based on how much you earn. And New York City residents have access to several different types of housing vouchers. Next slide, please. So just as a quick overview here, the types of vouchers available to city residents. The most common one that everyone may be aware of is called Section 8, the Housing Choice Voucher funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The wait list for this is unfortunately closed right now. The status is on the right side, as you can see. The Emergency Housing Voucher, for which the applications for the wait list are also closed. FEPS, otherwise known as state FEPS, the Family Homelessness and Eviction Prevention Program. You must apply through HRA or Homebase. City FEPs, there is no wait list for, but you must apply through Homebase. Project-based voucher, which we'll discuss a little bit later, and the HASA rental assistance subsidy. This is available to clients who receive services from HASA. It's HIV and AIDS Services Bureau. Next slide, please. So to start Section 8, we're going to be on this topic relatively short. As I mentioned, the Section 8 waitlists are unfortunately closed. The housing choice voucher is federally funded by the Housing and Urban Development, and they are administered by the New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA, or the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD. There's also a very, very small subsection administered by the State Division of Housing and Community Renewal, DHCR. The reason I bring this all up is because sometimes it's very useful to know which organization is administering the voucher. That way, if there are any questions, any issues with recertifications, or if you want to know if your name is on the wait list, you know which organization to reach out to. The waitlist has been closed since 2009. It is very, very frustrating. But the moment a waitlist opens up, we will generally all of our community organizations will find out, and we will try to let our clients know. The process can be quite lengthy. Eligibility is dependent on income and household sizes. The area median income standard has specifics for how many people are in a household to how much income there needs to be for that household. And no more than 40% of your adjusted monthly income is paid towards rent. The rest is paid by the administrators, NYCHA, HPD, DHCR. Generally, you recertify for these vouchers, and you must accommodate the quality standards. It's a fancy way of saying that the apartment or the unit that you reside in must be inspected. If you are a family member, have ever applied for a waitlist for Section 8, you may still be on the wait list. So this is why I've included this here. If so, you can reach out to any of the organizations to confirm and update your application process. Generally, after many, many years, some applicants will get phased out if they don't have contact with them. So the waitlist does move slowly, but it does move. So that is for Section 8. I'm going to actually hand it over to Nicole for something for the next voucher type. Next slide, please.
Okay, thank you. So as you just mentioned, we were talking a little bit about EHV, which is the emergency housing voucher. So that's something that came around more recently throughout COVID. The need for housing has gotten even more than from before. So the emergency housing voucher was basically a little bit of the Section 8 waitlist that was released. So it was a limited Section 8 voucher, which was administered, as you said, by those same three agencies. So through NYCHA, HPD, and DHCR. So those are for families and individuals who are actively homeless or at risk of homelessness, fleeing a domestic violence situation, or recently homeless and at high risk for housing instability. So right now, unfortunately, the NYCHA, EHV, and HPD are not accepting any new applications or referrals. The waitlist, again, same thing, the waitlist is quite lengthy, but they're making their way through it and submitting these new vouchers. So if you were referred and placed on the waitlist for the emergency housing voucher prior to September of last year, September 2022, you can still follow up with your organization to find out where you are on the waitlist. So there was a lot of clients that applied through Homebase or through different domestic violence organizations. And so if you were put on this, you can always follow up with them. But unfortunately, there are no new additions to the waitlist at this time. Do the next slide, please.
So we're going to jump into the Family Homelessness and Eviction Prevention, the FEPS voucher, otherwise known as state FEPS. This is a rent supplement provided to families with children who receive cash assistance benefits and public assistance benefits, to those who have been evicted, to those who've lost their housing because of domestic violence situations, or due to health and safety reasons. The qualifications for FEPS are listed here. So I understand that sometimes the wording for some of this can be quite tricky, so I'm going to try to break it down. So in order to qualify, your household must have a child under the age of 18 or 19 if they are enrolled in high school or a vocational program. or a pregnant person, and must have an active cash assistance case. That's one. Or if you are in a shelter and then qualify for cash assistance once you leave the shelter, that is the other. So in either case, you must have eligibility for cash assistance. If you have, and you, in addition to all of that, you need one of the 4 bullet points. So either you had previous shelter history at an HRA shelter or a DHS shelter, you were evicted at some time at one point and you went into the shelter, or you're currently in the process of being evicted. So the reason we bring that up is because there are lawsuits brought against tenants, holdover cases, eviction cases, non-payment cases. All of these will qualify assuming you meet one of the other requirements. So families can get FEPS up to 5 years. There is a possibility of extension with good cause. Generally, you have to show that you will still need the voucher. And when you have this particular case, a caseworker through Homebase or perhaps another community organization will be able to help guide you in this process. If there's ever a question, you can also follow up with HRA, but generally, I would say go to the organization that helped you obtain the voucher, and they will be able to further direct you in this case. Next slide, please. So the rent supplement lasts until your family either does not receive cash assistance anymore or your child ages out. Essentially, as long as they're under 18 or under 19 enrolled in some sort of secondary schooling, high school, vocational training, technical training. FEPS also pays rental arrears for up to $20,000 to assist an eligible family to stay in their current apartment. What that means is if there is a proceeding brought against you, you fell behind on rent for some reason, but you are eligible for the FEPS voucher, FEPS will pay up to $20,000 to wipe out those arrears. It helps you stay within your home in your communities. And on the right side, there is a chart here that shows how much the payment standard is. And what that means is how much the voucher will cover for. There are a lot of questions that clients ask me, like how much will my rent be? How much will I have to pay? How much will the voucher cover? It is like a general standard. This HRA dictates how much it will be per size household. So if you are a household of 3 or 4, you're going to fall under the $26.96. You won't be able to get that much if your household is less than that. Next slide, please. And okay, I'll pass it over to Nicole. This is for City FEPS.
Okay, so I just wanted to say quickly about the FEPS voucher that you just spoke about, the state one. So if you have rental arrears, again, under the $20,000, and you're applying at HRA for an emergency grant, also known as the one-shot deal, they should automatically screen you for FEPS if you meet those requirements. If you have the child and you have cash assistance, so that should all go through HRA, whether you're doing it down at the benefit center or you're applying through the Access HRA app. They now added in a little checkbox or a little addition that you can just apply for FEPS straight on your phone. So hopefully make it a little bit easier. And then if you already have the subsidy or you're looking to move with it, that's when Homebase would be involved. Okay, and so I'm going to talk about City FEPS, which is very similarly named, but is a little bit different. So City FEPS is a subsidy that is similar to the state FEPS, but is only within the 5 boroughs. So it's a New York City specific program that helps both individuals and families when the FEPS is only for families, like you mentioned, having the children in the home. So this one expands it more to individuals, or if you only have adults in your home who are at the risk of homelessness or are actively homeless. So this program is run by the Department of Social Services, which encompasses both the Department of Homeless Services and Human Resources Administration, which is HRA. So in order to receive City FEPS, again, it's a little bit tricky. It's like one from one bucket and one from another, but we'll try to explain it as best we can. So to be eligible for City FEPS, the household must have a gross income at or below 200% of the federal poverty level, and also meet one of the following 4 criteria. So that's going to be that lower income plus having one of these additional eligibility requirements. So that's going to be someone in the home who is a veteran, has served in the U.S. Armed Forces, or someone who has working with the Pathway Home program, which is through shelter, and that they sort of automatically sign them up for it. And also, if they were referred from a City FEPS qualifying program. So if you were referred from a City FEPS qualifying program, you would know, they would inform you, and that the Department of Social Services would determine that City FEPS was needed. And most of the clients that are seeking the subsidy are going to fall in this number 4 bracket, which are households that are facing eviction in court or have been evicted in the past year. So that's going to be that low income plus facing eviction. And so you need to have that eviction piece as well as these last couple bullets. So that's going to be someone in the household has lived in the shelter previously, or has an APS, which is an adult protective services case, or is in community guardianship, or lives in a rent controlled apartment and needs the City FEPS subsidy in order to stay in that apartment. So it's very confusing, and it's a lot of like bits and pieces, but hopefully reading down the explanation kind of breaks down who might qualify for this. And I just wanted to mention quickly, because we always do say that City FEPS is a New York City specific program. I know that the mayor has made the announcement within the last week that they might be able to move with City FEPS somewhere else in the state of New York. That is pending. We are waiting on information for that, but it might be able to be expanded throughout the state shortly. We can get the next slide, please. And so again, so like the state FEPS program, City FEPS is also provided for about 5 years total. If people have been involved in subsidies and learning about them for the last couple of years, if you knew about all of the link programs, there was like 7 different programs that were combined all together into City FEPS, making it a little bit easier for tenants seeking assistance and a little bit easier for the administrators. So if you have had link in the past, that has rolled over into City FEPS. So again, that's the 5 years total. You're doing 4 renewals. And the same thing, similar to FEPS, the extensions are available for a good cause. If there is something in the household where the subsidy is still needed, they are able to renew and keep getting assistance. And so the automatic exception for the 5 years is that any household that has a member age 60 or older, or adults that have Social Security disability, they will get the subsidy for longer. Without good cause, because that is the good cause. And then again, to be assessed for City FEPS, if you think that you might qualify, depending on those eligibility requirements, anyone who's living in the community who is living in an apartment, not living in a shelter, needs to go through home base. And so, like I mentioned, there are home bases all over the city. There's one that covers every single zip code. And we have listed the ones for Brooklyn right there. And we're also put up this information again, so you don't need to jot it down yet, but it's all by zip code. And so there should be a home base location fairly close to where you are living. You can go to the next slide.
Before we get started on HAHASA and project-based vouchers, I do want to add later on in the slides, there are links to the other home-based locations for the rest of the city. So please don't worry, you don't have to look it up specifically later. It is available here.
Yeah, it's easy to contact.
Yes.
And Ruki, just to not mess up the screen share, but once we're through all the slides, I'll put those links in the chat for everyone, so you can grab them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Elle. Okay, so for the uncommon subsidies, the project-based vouchers and HAHASA rental assistance. As I mentioned before, HAHASA rental assistance is for people living with HIV or AIDS who receive cash assistance or public assistance benefits. And in order to qualify, you must have a caseworker through the organization, through HAHASA. HAHASA is another department essentially under HRA. You must reach out to the HAHASA or offices and coordinate with a caseworker. You will apply through them, and more information can be found on the link And as Will mentioned, the links will be provided in the chat after. For project-based vouchers, these are vouchers tied specifically to public housing. What that means is if you choose to move out of this building after, you do not take the voucher with you. Unlike Section 8, where that applies to any apartment that it may accept it across the country, these are tied to specific regions and specific buildings, specific apartments, even in some cases. Applications are open through New York City Housing Connect. That link will also be provided in the chat. And it will be mentioned in that building's application that this is going to be a project-based voucher. There are less common project-based vouchers lately just because of how expansive city FEPs and FEPs have become. So they're a little bit rarer to see on that end. In my time working here, I've actually only seen one. So like I said, a little uncommon. Next slide, please, Will. And then I think Nicole, do you want to take the first part and I'll take the second?
Sure. So we sort of discussed the eligibility requirements and the administration for these subsidies. So how do they know that you qualify for them, right? So you're going to HRA or you're coming to home base or you're reaching out for assistance saying, I need this help. How can I get it in the quickest way possible? So really the best way is to come prepared, and know, to be able to tell us your story and we can get the ball rolling on any assistance. So if you have your appointment and you come in, we want to make sure that you're going to gather your paperwork first. So that would be if you're in housing court and you have paperwork for that, your current lease, if you have one, any bills, if you're seeking assistance with like electricity bills, gas bills, anything that you might be seeking assistance with. And that's also going to be proof of income. So if you have SSI, if you have any benefits, if you're working, you want to bring in those recent pay stubs. And if you have a current benefit form, if you have SNAP or PA cash, anything like that. If you have previously had a subsidy and it fell off, or you never completed the renewal, or you did complete the renewal and nothing has happened, bring in all of that, IDs and birth certificates for everyone in the home. So if you come in with your packet, it makes everything go a lot quicker. And again, the process can be lengthy. It depends on the office and it depends on getting the paperwork and just making sure that everything goes through. So again, if you show up with all of your paperwork, all of the notices, all of your recent documentation, phone numbers, emails, if you keep them all together and bring them all, that will speed up the process. So these vouchers, city FEPs and FEPs, can take several weeks after the initial application is submitted. So if you are looking, and I think somebody mentioned in the Q&A as well, if you're looking for an intake appointment, depending on your home-based office, the wait list can be long, anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks, depending. But we always want to tell people too that if you have an immediate crisis, if the housing court process has already gone through and there's a marshals, or you're later in the housing court process, just let us know so that we could potentially bump you up in the wait list. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as if you come with all your paperwork, we can issue a voucher that day, that time, because all of this is approved through either the state or the city. So that takes time. Can we go to the next one?
So some of the recent changes and how they're impacting the community is something we wanted to discuss. One of the most common ones that I've been seeing lately is the change in the 90-day rule. Typically in the past, someone would have to be in the New York City shelter system for about 90 days to become eligible for that voucher. As of July 2023, that rule has been lifted. So now you do not have to wait those 90 days. I do, however, want to reiterate what Nicole said, that if you are in any HRA shelters or DHS shelters, DSS shelters, you must go through the caseworkers at the shelters. Homebase will not be able to assist in that case. That is the only instance that Homebase cannot. The shelter system has their own process, and the caseworkers actually go through the process with you. Homebase works with communities, people who are in the community still. City FEPs and FEPs rental amounts are also matching now as of October of last year. In the past, there were discrepancies in how much FEPs would pay for your rental subsidy versus how much city FEPs would pay. So that's been, it was actually increased to match. If a unit's rent includes utilities, households are eligible for a maximum subsidy amount. If utilities are not included, the subsidy amount will decrease per eligible, like, whatever utility is or is not included. That is something that can be discussed when your packet is being processed, whether it's through Homebase or HRA. And you will actually be asked to provide a copy of like the lease in that kind of situation to see what exactly will be provided. So in that instance, definitely keep in touch with the caseworker at whichever organization you are going through and have the paperwork handy. And Nicole mentioned this earlier, this is a developing story. We're still waiting to hear exactly on what this entails. Recently, the mayor's office did announce that the voucher, city FAP specifically, may be transferable outside to the state in some cases. I believe, if I recall correctly, Homebase is going to be receiving the information. We're still awaiting everything. So we have no information on this yet, but what I would say is keep an ear out for it. Upcoming appointments, when you are going to Homebase or asking or speaking with your caseworkers, ask if there has been any updates. Just be patient with this. This came through last week. Next slide, please. And for frequently asked questions, I mentioned this earlier, for which Homebase organization you can go to. The website will be attached in the chat here afterwards. You can go by your zip code, and 311 can also reroute you to your closest office. Let me see. In regards to qualifications, they are, as we have mentioned, dependent on circumstances, but once you speak with your local Homebase providers, your caseworkers, you will know a little bit more. And in terms of paperwork that you need to gather, any information that relates to income, bills, leases, subsidies. If you've previously had any subsidies in the past, if you have copies of that paperwork, bring it with you. I will also add, if you are currently in housing court, bring your court paperwork with you. Upcoming court dates, bring all of that just so that you have it handy. If a question comes up, the answer is available. Let's see, the process, it varies, but at minimum, at least 4 weeks. There are wait lists and wait times for everybody. And it is just going to be one of those things that is very, very case by case, very dependent on each Homebase location, not even each organization. And as to how to find new apartments, broker resources, community organizations can provide that. So for clients of Brooklyn A, it's something that our organization can provide to some of our clients if that's something they're looking for to seek alternative housing. Homebase case managers can also sometimes help with finding units. It is very, very, very specific. Ask your caseworker in that case if they have anything available, but the best option would just be to keep searching, documenting everything. And if you have gone through resources, make sure you check off, okay, I've tried this, I haven't tried this. And sometimes they will warrant repeats. And let me just see here. I believe that wraps us up for frequently asked questions. So next slide. And
yeah. Bulk of it. That is excellent. Thank you so much to both of you for running through all of that. I think it's like you said, it's dense and the qualifications are complicated, but this is really, really helpful for folks. So we're going to open up the floor to questions. I'm actually going to stop the screen share, but as people are asking questions, I'll put all of the contact info here and the links into the chat. And so the way that this works is you have two options. You can, if you look on your screen, you'll see the Q&A box. You can type in your question there, or you can click the little virtual raise your hand button, and then I will see it on my end, and I can unmute you so you can ask your question verbally. So if people want to do that, they're welcome to. But why don't we start? We have a couple in the chat already. We have one from Alex from Senator Prasad's office. Alex, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate having the senator represented. We kind of just hit this, Rookie did, in terms of finding housing. The question is, what can be done for constituents who have acquired vouchers but can't find housing? Have referred cases to Catholic Charities. I know that it's tough to provide assistance. Have provided a list of realtors. So yeah, maybe just a little more on that, Rookie.
Sure. So yes, that is something that we're running into across all organizations. I'm sure Nicole will be able to speak to that as well. For my clients, what I would do is continue to provide resources. And one of the best things, especially if someone is in housing court for it, is documenting the search. Because when it comes to asking for more time through the court system, judges like to see the efforts that all of our clients have made. And it's very, very frustrating. But sometimes when something is very, very nicely documented and you're able to show, I've been putting in this much work to finding housing, and it's just difficult to do right now, which it is, that work needs to be acknowledged. So documenting it is one of the biggest tips I have. But unfortunately, other than providing the resources, it's hard to say like a good answer for that. That it's something that I think all of us are struggling with.
Yeah, I would say too, once you're enrolled and you are linked up with a caseworker, to always ask them if they have any resources, if they have any links. We can provide as much as we can, and it really does, it's really hard right now. So like you were saying, document everything, and then if you're running into, quite often if it's people saying, or landlords or management companies saying like, oh, we don't deal with vouchers, that can be a source of income discrimination issue, in which you should let us know so that we can follow up with that.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on that, yes, that is absolutely something that our attorneys have said. It is not it's not legal for them to deny a voucher. It's that is not what happens here. It's not supposed to. It is what happens. Unfortunately, it's not supposed to. The other thing I would mention is some community organizations update those lists pretty frequently. Sometimes, like, it's something I personally try to do every couple of weeks. If I get new resources, I'm always looking for, what wait list is open, how many new Housing Connects applications have opened up. So I would say continue to follow up and see if there's been any changes. But yes, that is a question that unfortunately I have no good answer for other than continue to try.
Yeah, it's certainly, as you said, it's a challenging housing situation for the whole city. It really is, I'm sure, frustrating for a lot of folks. So we appreciate the work that Senator Prasad does, and all the elected officials we work with, who work really hard, along with case managers, folks working at home base, to do the best they can to get people into units. I see William Galinsky has their hand raised. You are able to unmute, William. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. I have a question about city FIPS. You said it could be renewed each year for 5 years, and in certain instances it can go on beyond that. How does the renewal process work? And I'm asking this because the people that I work with in court, I'm a guardian ad litem. Some of them are mentally disabled or physically disabled, and they cannot always understand the renewal process. Is it sent directly to them, or is it up to APS or the other people to renew it? Does it happen automatically, or that's my question?
So the renewals are sent to had automatic renewals for quite some time during COVID. Now they're back to sending the paperwork to the individual and the address on file. So it's sent with, I think, about a couple months leeway in order to fill out and send back. And the city also is very behind in completing renewals.
Okay. Yeah.
But if there's a question on if it was sent, they can look it up through the city and see if it's.
Because they will face an eviction.
Mhm.
The landlord will take them back to court and go for that. So that's encouraging, though. We'll follow up on that on our end too. Thank you so much.
Great,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate what you're here for. Thank you.
Thank you, William. We appreciate your question, and it sounds like the work you do too. Thank you. All right, not seeing hands, but I do see that we have more in the chat written here. Will this recording be sent to us and emails afterward along with the resources? Yes, I will. So we'll post the recording on our YouTube channel, totally free and able to access. Just look up Brooklyn A. I think our tag is BKA legal, and we'll share it on our social media as well, so it's easy to find. And we can email over the certainly the links and the slides to anybody who joined us tonight. We have your email, so we can send those out after. Question just about resources, why it takes a while to reach back to clients. I'm sure this happens, this comes up, I'm sure, for everybody.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the question was about home base in general. It's right now everyone has really deep caseloads. I would say if, like I was saying before, if it's at the point where it's a housing court issue, if there are arrears, if there are other issues in the home, and you're reaching out to home base and they're not calling you back, I would say the best thing to do is to either keep calling, or I gave the resources as well that have the addresses of all the offices. And so hopefully you can contact them and make an appointment to follow up with someone to speak about your specific case. But unfortunately, from home base through the city, through the state, it's all very, very backed up right now.
I actually want to pipe in a little bit here as well, just because there have been such massive numbers in terms of court cases, and especially in housing court, once the eviction moratorium was lifted post-COVID, that fallout is still being seen. So in regards to just, maybe this kind of ties back in with the previous question of like, what do we do if our clients are unable to find housing resources? This is the unfortunate situation that we're in, where so many people are struggling because things were backed up for such a long time, unfortunately. And a lot of our community organizations are at capacity. Not just like, I can't speak without them here, but some of the organizations that I've referred clients to have just been not able to take on more clients because they've either lost staff, they're at capacity for caseloads. And do remember, they are, most of these organizations, nonprofit organizations, when they don't have staff, it kind of comes to like a grinding halt. So that is, it's not an answer anyone wants to hear, but that is the answer.
Well, we appreciate that. I think, I think that's helpful about why you guys are doing this tonight. This is just, it's the unfortunate situation of where the city's at right now. But, all credit to you guys that, continuing to chip away at a very big problem. So the question here, why are voucher holders being blocked out of new developments? Maybe even individual case might be something of voucher discrimination, potentially, sounds like.
Voucher holders should not be blocked out of new developments. As Nicole has said, that is income discrimination. I will say that in some cases, there are like apartments that are ridiculously overpriced for what they are. That's something that we spoke about at a certain, like at previous meetings and things like that. So report that to your caseworker if that's something that you're seeing. I would ideally love to see some sort of stance be taken against this, but we need to know more about what exactly is happening here.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruki. Next question we have was, is it 30% of your income? Not sure exactly which program this is referring to, but maybe I think we talked about the percentages for Section 8, right?
Yeah, Section 8 is generally 30%. In certain cases, it can go to 40. I believe 40 is just the max. Generally, I believe HUD gives us the range of 30 to 40.
And that meaning 30% of your income, that's
Adjusted income.
of your adjusted income max to that would become your rent.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's the same for FEPS and city FEPS as well. It's all calculated depending on your income.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you both. And by the way, so if you guys can see the chat, I dropped in our info, Catholic Charities, contact the New York Housing Connect in there, and the home base. Were there any others I missed? Ricky, Nicole?
I don't think so. I think those were the big main ticket items that are coming to mind.
Excellent. And like I said, we'll put these in an email to folks who attended tonight as well. Another question, common case, family of immigrants without children, doesn't have a social security number, doesn't have work authorization, living in shelter, works on survival job for cash. Is it possible to get a voucher, and what is the best program for someone in this situation?
So things are tough right now for families that don't have documentation, especially like you mentioned before too, if they're living in shelter, it would all go through shelter, because many of these programs are funded federally. They need to have at least one household member who can have those state or city benefits. The FASTN program was developed during COVID in order to help, but unfortunately that has ended as well.
And
So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Will.
No, you please.
I was just going to clarify, Nicole, for someone to qualify for any of for city FEPS or FEPS, they do need to have status. Someone in the household needs to have
Someone in the
status. Is that
household,
correct?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just writing the responses here, folks. If you look at the question and answer, I'm typing these answers. So if you missed Ricky and Nicole's response, they should be there. Next one we have though, for FEPS, do you have to have income from a job, or if you have cash assistance, will you still qualify?
So for FEPS, actually, with cash assistance, you will qualify. There are the nuance to that is if someone has cash assistance, sometimes there are work activities that someone has to do in order to maintain their cash assistance. So you need to be doing that. But as long as you have an active cash assistance case, you should qualify. When it comes to income from a job, actually, if I recall correctly, we have a benefits law specialist on our staff who has told me that when it becomes like when you start incorporating income from a job, your cash assistance benefit actually may be cut. So for that, take that as you will. You do need cash assistance. I'm not ever going to say that someone should not get a job because I understand how low the benefits are for cash assistance. However, just ensure that when you are doing this process that you keep in touch with everybody and make sure that your income is still falling within the eligibility criteria, because the last thing any of us want for any of our clients is for them to get hit with thousands of dollars in arrears because you suddenly no longer qualify for a voucher.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm living in a PhD unit. My recertification was held up because I didn't procure my life insurance. I was told to vacate the apartment at the end of the month if I don't produce. Is it maybe HPD unit? Maybe just a typo.
Thank you. I was not quite sure what that was. I would say when it comes to recertifications, generally, I would go to the organization who is handling the case. If this is an HPD unit, there should be somebody attached in every single letter that you're getting that has a worker or that has a staff member from HPD, their phone number, their email. And I will say that sometimes, yes, these letters are extremely intimidating. However, no one wants to see any of our clients fall through the cracks, Nobody wants to see anybody end up homeless. If you have a situation where you need more time, tell them. That is one of the biggest things that I can say. Or if you just don't feel confident in doing so yourself, if you have a community organization that you're working with, I'm going to use myself as an example here. Tell us, and we'll try to do that. And we can reach out to some of our contacts at HPD, at NYCHA, and see if there's some way for us to either get you more time or just flat out, hopefully not even get to that point of being evicted and being thrown out at the end of the month. So that is my biggest tip for anybody. I know the letters say dates. I know the letters say you have to do things by a certain time, but life happens for everybody. Just explain the situation and continue to advocate or ask for help to advocate in cases. Nicole, if you have something to add.
Yeah, I
please.
just wanted to add too, and you can't be evicted without going through the housing court process. So again, like you were mentioning, those letters that can be scary, and the letters that have dates, and the letters that say final notice, can be really intimidating, and that's how people leave at the end of the month without being legally evicted. So reach out and try to get some assistance, and don't just evacuate the unit, because you might not be able to get back in with the subsidy.
Yes, some of these places, sometimes people will use that intimidation factor to quite literally get somebody out. Just, I would say, continue to advocate for yourself, and if you have questions, ask. Definitely.
Yeah, there's if you just look up like tenants' rights in New York City are very strong, and so know your rights and know that you don't have to leave depending on just one letter from your landlord.
That's really good to know. Yeah, absolutely. Please do reach out. And again, the contact info for both us and Catholic Charities is in the chat. We have a question from Nadia. If you are a landlord who rents to a City FEPS client, how can they raise rent? More landlord side.
So yeah, so even if it's a subsidized unit, if it is someone who's paying through a voucher program, they're still going to have the lease, and they're still going to have that amount that it's being rented for. So the leases, like every unit, are going to be good for say a year or 2 years. And like you mentioned before, that FEPS and City FEPS have reached the same rent levels, and generally those have been going up every year. And so when the renewal comes around, when the lease dates are re-signed, you can look up and see what the City FEPS rent levels are right now, if you think that the unit should be increased. But that can't be done in the middle of a lease. It has
Like
to
a
be
term.
done. Yeah, exactly. It has to be done at the end of the lease term, even if that doesn't line up to when the city releases the updated numbers.
And I believe, just to add, rent, how much rent increases by is, Will, correct me if I'm wrong, is up to the rent control board, correct?
At least for stabilized units,
For stabilized units.
Yeah, I guess if it, like any other, like it depends what unit you have with
Right.
your voucher. So
Yes.
yeah, you could potentially just the market rate. Excellent. Couple more questions here. We're gonna try to wrap up close to 7. So if other folks have them, feel free to add them in, but we'll probably wrap up with these two. So hi again, from Anamika, thanks for your question. What would happen to a client who is receiving SSA benefits but is getting evicted? What can be done for them if they don't qualify for City FEPS?
SSA benefits in term, like, are we talking disability benefits or a supplemental security? I'll answer both. For social
wait,
security.
actually, we have Anamika raising hand.
Go ahead.
Anamika, can you hear me?
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you guys. Just to go in a little bit more detail. Yes, they are receiving SSA benefits for disability. I think it was right at the cutoff margin. So I think it's like 913, but they're still on SNAP and cash assistance. So I think they fall right in between that gray area, I believe. So I'm not too sure.
So for disability benefits, unfortunately, there's nothing in place that makes it so that disabled individuals can't be evicted. I don't agree with it, but that is the way that the things are. what I will say is when we have clients that are disabled, I try to gather doctors' notes. I try to gather like basically anything relating to a client's disability. And we also, our attorneys and myself, we've typed up notices of advocacy letters to state that, you know, this client needs something or needs an accommodation of some kind. Sometimes that's enough for a judge to grant us more time. Other times it's not. It also depends on the case itself. And in other cases, if there's like something that's just going to be a truly like dangerous to a client, medical emergencies, medical needs, this is when APS actually comes in handy. APS referrals are a good tool to use, and that's something that we do at Brooklyn A. And what that does is APS actually can provide city FAPS vouchers. If a case is accepted, they can provide it. It is case by case. They do their evaluations. They have their own criteria for how a client meets their to get the services through APS. But once they do, and they see that a client is disabled and is on the verge of homelessness, and if they qualify for their services, they will provide a city FAPS voucher. And the reason I say that is because I have a client going through that process right now, and we just found out that the voucher was granted. So sometimes it works. It is case by case, but start gathering paperwork for medical documentation, start reaching out to the client's attorneys, make sure that they're aware that we need more time. And it's actually essentially what we're trying to do is just buy them as much time as possible.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's a good reminder to learn about Adult Protective Services, APS. It's not talked about a lot. So thank you so much for that reminder.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. All right, I see William's hand. I don't know if it's still up or up for a second time. William, I'll unmute you. Did you have a second question, or the hand just still up from before?
It was still up from before. I don't have a second question.
Perfect, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think we've hit everybody. Well, there's the question here from written on the Charisma White account, but it looks like it's from Anna, asking to be added to the list with follow-up information. Absolutely. We'll I'll make sure that you get emailed all of the resources we will be sending out tonight. And with that, we'll say a huge thank you to Ruki and Nicole for doing excellent work handling all of these really complex questions and this complex topic. And just all the work you do day to day, week to week. So thank you so much. Thank you also to our elected official sponsors, Councilmember Rita Joseph and Councilmember Farrell Lewis. Thank you to Alex from Senator Prasad's office for joining us as well. Really appreciate you being here. And thank you to everybody who attended. We are so glad that we could get this resource to you. As I said, we'll have this up on the Brooklyn A YouTube channel. You can find it there. We'll also post it on social media. Most likely going into this long weekend. It might come out early next week, so just keep an eye out. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. Thank you so much again, Ruki and Nicole.
Thank you for joining, everyone. I'm happy to always help and just make community.
Thank you. Yeah, and just reach out if you have any questions or need any additional assistance.
Excellent. And again, before folks log off, in the chat here is the Brooklyn A contact information, the Catholic Charities contact information, NYC Housing Connect, which has resources if you're on the apartment hunt, and the home base location finder. You can find the closest home base location to you. And don't hesitate to reach out to us with other questions, other legal services we provide, whatever you may need. We're happy to help. So thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy the long weekend. And we hope to see you at our next educational event.